There's a lot of issues to tackle, and the cliche that you can walk and chew gum at the same time is true. You can tackle more than one issue or a basket of issues simultaneously, so you can tackle cultural issues and economic issues and the legal issues of the two leading candidates for president in 2024. But maybe you can't cover them with the depth that each demands. Thinking specifically about economic issues and where a lot of Americans are right now in terms of their economic security. Despite the sales job that the big guy is trying to do with Bidenomics, 70% of Americans believe their economic position has deteriorated in the last year. So that's, and I'm not saying this, is the sole responsibility of the president. It never is. Too much blame and too much credit. But certainly, Bidenomics has exacerbated, I would argue, exacerbated the deterioration. Which brings me to this piece that Oren wrote about secure jobs. And some of the data that he has in his piece is rather stunning, sobering. And people should be aware of this, too, thinking about the sort of public policy we should expect to be promoted when, well, for example, Republican presidential candidates take the debate stage again later this month, get a little bit more probing questions on matters that relate to the average family's economic security. The people who play by the rules in this country who get fleeced by a government they finance. That's who I'm talking about and who I'm most concerned about, frankly. Oren Cass is the executive director of American Compass. He joins us now. Oren, thanks for being with us again. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Good morning.
So first, I guess let's get some definitions set. Where are the secure jobs? What's a secure job?
Well, it's a concept we developed as we were looking, as you just described, at sort of the economic data, which in some senses people say is great. Unemployment rate is low. Look at all the jobs we're creating. But we want to know what kinds of jobs we're creating. And for all the data the government collects and reports, there's very little focus on what those jobs actually are. And so we created a definition. We tried to be sort of pretty modest about it. We said, a secure job should be paying at least $40,000 a year. It should have health care benefits. It should have some paid time off. And you should have some predictability in what you're going to be earning and in what your schedule is going to be. And so, the government surveys tens of thousands of people every month. We did a survey of 1,000 workers, but just asked them about the characteristics of their jobs to see. Okay, we know we have lots of jobs, but how many of them actually meet this pretty minimum definition of a secure job?
And the percentages of college degreed and non-college degreed who meet that secure job threshold, where you just described 40 grand and some decent benefits and scheduling predictability?
Yeah, so overall for all jobs, it's less than half. And then if you particularly zoom in on the majority of Americans who don't have a college degree, it's less than a third. So for Americans without a college degree, only about 30% of workers actually have a secure job.
Which is, I think, a number that would surprise people. $40,000, that's not making a ton of money right now, particularly with prices at the pump and in grocery stores. And to have a majority of workers in this country under that threshold probably would surprise most people, don't you think?
I think so. We were certainly surprised by it. I think there's always sort of a focus on narrow segments of our economy that we think of as kind of stereotypically bad jobs. And, you think of, fast food workers or retailer. There are segments that people focus on. And conversely, any economy is going to always have some jobs that look like that. And frankly, you're going to have some workers for whom that might even be what they're looking for or what's appropriate. I mean, if you think about, you do want to have jobs out there that teenagers
yeah, of course.
take also. So,
yeah.
the point isn't that we should be at 100% secure jobs, but I think it's really important to think about this, not as, oh, if somebody doesn't have a good job, well, it must be their own fault that they didn't get a better one, but that structurally it's just how our economy performs and what kinds of jobs our economy creates just does not line up right now with our aspiration and our expectation for supporting a strong middle class.
Well, and to that statement, you have this data point that's even more surprising. Uh, 40% of recent college graduates are underemployed. 40%. The United States
Yeah.
is producing bachelor's degrees at twice the rate the economy is producing jobs classified as requiring one. It's interesting. The caddy I had the other day playing golf, this really sharp kid who just graduated with a degree in computer science, and he's looking for a job right now, and he's caddying in the interim and stuff. Hopes the job market improves a little bit in the first part of the year, but so here's a kid with a STEM degree, very sharp. He must have done very well in school. I mean, you can just tell when you talk to somebody. And he's not moving right from college into the workforce, and that's the expectation, particularly when you get a degree in that discipline.
Yeah, and that's something that we see again generally and for decades now. We have this idea, well, whatever's wrong in our economy, we're going to solve with education. If we just sort of prepare everybody better, then everybody will have a great outcome. And certainly, there's a piece of it that's all about both making sure we have a good education system. It is about the personal responsibility of people to prepare themselves to go out and find a job, to work hard. Certainly, we have to emphasize all of that, but we also have to recognize that's not going to be enough. That you also have to have an economy that's creating the kinds of jobs. And
So
right now,
yeah, so
that's how
detail.
it works.
Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, detail. I mean, reconcile that for us. As much detail as you can provide. What is happening there? 40% underemployed, twice the rate of bachelor's degrees as jobs classified as requiring one. I mean, that may be a good thing in terms of jobs that really shouldn't require a bachelor's degree. No longer mandating it, so forth. But it sounds like it's no. You have a glut of people that are coming out of college, and there's no place for them.
Well, that's well put, and I think speaks to a big mistake we've made, which is that in assuming, well, if we can just get more people college degrees, we'll solve the problems, without thinking about what college is actually good for, what it prepares people for, and what we need out there. We've in a sense way overinvested in college. We converted our education system into this college for all model. If you think about what we ask of our high schools, they're basically supposed to be college prep academies at this point. And simultaneously, we pretty much cut off any other option. I mean, we have much less effective career and technical education than we used to. Employers, I don't think, do the same kind of investment in taking a kid out of high school and training them with basic skills. And so we simultaneously have this glut of college graduates, and we also are doing a really terrible job of all the other ways we could prepare people for work. And so I think it's really a fundamental rethink we need in what we aspire to for the economy, what is practical to accomplish, and what's actually going to prepare people and set them up to build lives.
So you also tackle the sort of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce position that we need robust immigration to bring people into this country who want to work and will, the phrase, do the jobs that Americans won't do. Is that true?
Well, I think it's a huge problem that this is the attitude in the business community and something that politicians accept. I mean, that phrase, jobs Americans won't do, in addition to just like on its surface, I think being kind of gross, more philosophically is just bad economics. I mean, employers are only going to create jobs Americans won't do if they think they're going to get to find other people to do the jobs instead. And so I think it's actually really helpful to use that as a starting point to find a path out, to think about how we can do better. And that's where we focus a lot at American Compass, is on this question of just how do we get capitalism working better for everybody? How do we make it so the same things that businesses are going to want to do that is going to provide the most profit are also the kinds of things that create good jobs for Americans?
but like,
And supplying businesses with as much cheap immigrant labor as they want is exactly the opposite of that.
but now the flip side. I mean, you have to include the government here, and you do in your piece. You have this phrase that's rather, sadly comical. The economy is creating great jobs, we're told, but also people would rather rely on food stamps, Medicaid, and a disability check than take one. So there's sort of a dichotomy there, to say the least. But the flip side is so. I mean, including the government in terms of something that is distorting government policy, distorting the labor market. I have a friend who's got like a corporate cleaning business, schools and office buildings and so forth. And I mean, he can't get people to work for a wage that he can afford to pay them and still make money on these contracts that he has with these corporations and school districts and so forth. And I mean, you're not talking about slave wage, slave wages. You're talking about certainly above minimum wage, 20, $22 an hour. And he just can't find people, so much so that in his 60s now, he and his wife have had to do a lot of the work that they're really not in shape to do anymore. And so the small business person that's in that position, what do you say to that person? What is happening that is putting that person in the predicament I describe?
Well, so the first question I would ask is, are are those secure jobs? I mean, it sounds like $22 an hour. We're maybe right on the edge of hitting 40K a year. Is he offering benefits and paid time off? Is he offering predictable schedule and predictable pay? We sort of started the discussion appalled that we don't have more secure jobs, but if the way a small business is, if that business model is one that says we can't offer secure jobs, um, then that's a real problem. Now,
No,
obviously the business
that's
owner
not
would.
it. And by the way, he used to have, people. He used to not have very much turnover at all. I mean, just to again use this as an example, because I don't think he's alone in this. Used to not have much turnover. Now he has trouble finding anybody, and so I mean, that's a real shift. So there's something going on, and you hear this from other small businesses. There's something going on that's more than that. Even as they maybe if they were on the edge before, they've tightened their own belt buckles and moved to, now I'm at 25, $30 an hour. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. So they're trying to adapt to the labor market to make themselves more attractive and still struggling to find people. So, I mean, government has to be part of the conversation here, government policy.
Well, I definitely agree on that point about government policy, and I think it comes from both sides. In that, I think there's both things that government does that's very counterproductive. We were just talking about, for instance, if you have safety net programs that are generous if you're not working, but the benefits quickly fall away if you do work, then it's not just that government is supporting people and not working; it's that they're actively we're actively penalizing people if they start working, and that's obviously a very bad design. I think it's for conservatives in particular, though. I think we've been overly focused in the past on thinking this is just a problem of government being in the way, and if we could just get government out of the way, everything would work great. And that's where I think the secure jobs point is so important, is to recognize that what the government's doing is not preventing people from creating secure jobs. We have real problems in the way our market is working that is not leading to the creation of the kinds of jobs we want. And as much as we love free markets, there's no actual basis for believing, well, if we just leave it to the free market, suddenly the secure jobs will emerge. And so something I think we have to focus a lot more on is question of, okay, well, what kinds of public policies not just are going to get out of the way where things are bad, but what are the things public policy can actually do that is going to lead to the creation of more of the kinds of secure jobs that we want?
Well, give me an example of one of the things that we should be thinking about.
Well, so we just talked in the context of immigration, and alongside that, I think globalization is sort of the flip side of immigration, right? Immigration, if you think about it, is, well, how do you bring in more workers to do something Americans aren't doing. Globalization is, well, how do you take the work and bring it to people elsewhere instead of doing it in America? And so in both these ways, what we've done is sort of created a set of signals for businesses and investors that say, look, your goal is to turn a good profit. Here are some really great ways to turn a profit that don't involve creating secure jobs. In fact, it might be more profitable to eliminate all of your secure jobs and do something else instead. And so whereas we always think of the free market, we say, well, just getting all restrictions out of the way leads to the freest market. If that free market is, for instance, connected to China's, and now whatever China's doing is going to influence how our businesses behave, you can get really bad results. So I think public policy needs to do a much better job of focusing American businesses and American investors on how do we make money in America and how do we do it with American workers. And so having a sane immigration system that is actually enforceable and that actually makes sure we're not just flooding the low end of the labor market, I think is important. And then also having trade policies that say, look, trade is good. We want to be making things here that we trade for things people make elsewhere. But we're not going to keep doing this thing where we just let everything be offshored elsewhere and then get, the stuff gets sent back here and we just make less stuff here. That leads to lots of cheap stuff, and people like cheap stuff. But if it destroys a lot of secure jobs in the process, then we're not actually better off in the long run.
Oren Cass is the executive director of American Compass. Oren, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Oh, this was great. Thank you.
And he joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to Dan and Amy on your smartphone. Download the AM 560 mobile app today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
You want your child to come back from school hating God, America, and you? If the answer is no, the solution is St. John's Lutheran School in Lombard. I am the man, Cal. Look, I'm a Christian guy with 2 daughters out in this world, and it can get very scary. St. John's Lutheran School Lombard is the only school in all of Illinois that offers the Hillsdale College curriculum for kindergarten through 8th grade. It's a game changer, a nurturing environment with a Christian faith, traditional values, and critical thinking that teaches kids to think for themselves, not what to think. What a great thing to do for your child or grandchild. Strong academics with the Hillsdale curriculum and strong character. Go to stjohnslombard.com. That's Saint, S-T, johnslombard.com. stjohnslombard.com. It's in Lombard, Glen Ellen, Wheaton, Downers Grove, and all places nearby. stjohnslombard.com.
Are you turning 65 and thinking about Medicare? Or are you over 65 and haven't enrolled yet because you still have coverage at work? Either way, Medicare done correctly will be the best health insurance you will ever have. Imagine having nationwide access with an annual deductible of only $226. There are only 2 good things about aging, wisdom and Medicare. But to navigate the Medicare maze properly, you need a mentor.